All right. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to talk about what it means to be in Vestry. We're hoping to recruit today. I'll be open about that. We have 4 slots opening up, and we will be voting at the general meeting in January. So we are hoping you will have questions for us, and feel free to join into the conversation later. If you have questions later on, after you've mulled this information over, contact us. If you're anything like me, I don't often have all the questions ready to go at that moment, but they come when I'm washing dishes or sweeping the floor, and, feel free to reach out. Okay? So I have a few slides here that we're going to talk through and just go through a few important points. Okay, so what is a vestry? Some of you might know that already, but we're basically the governing body of the church. It's like the board for a nonprofit. We discuss things like finances, management of the property, repairs, human resources like selecting rectors and associate rectors, things like that. Every single meeting, we look at finances. By law, we have a fiduciary duty to make sure we handle church finances as they should be handled and they're not mishandled. So we look at the finances, what comes in, what goes out, expenses, things like that. And we make decisions of where we are going to put our monies to work. So as many of you know, 5 years ago, we started a capital campaign. Those funds were put aside for that particular purpose. So we also have that type of thing to go over in finance. What are we doing with these particular pots of money? So we share leadership with the rector. We all come to decisions together at the table. There are 12 of us, and so we all bring different expertise and wisdom and life experiences. We come from all different walks of life, and we want that. We want that at the table. We want diverse opinions and, thoughts on decisions we make. The more the merrier. We want questions, we want creativity, we want all that so that we can make a decision as a body. And so, as part of that, we have a strategic plan for the church. We have to be stewards of that. We want to plan in such a way that it reflects God's dream for the congregation. What kind of community do we want to be? Where do we want to go? So these are all things we talk about in Vestry. How do we create growth, not only in numbers, but in terms of spiritual growth? So we talk about formation groups, what type of, programs we're going to offer. This year we were catapulted by events in May, George Floyd's death. So we were catapulted to bring to the fore something we already had in mind, but hadn't quite planned to talk about, right now. And so we embarked on our journey for deconstructing racism. So things like that come up and they form part of our strategic plan. So as Vestry members, we are stewards of the mission, not only of finances, but also of the mission. And we try and help the church grow into the community that it can be and wishes to be. So that's who we are as a general scheme of things. Now, if you're interested in running, or you've even just had an inkling of what on earth do these people do, so there are certain expectations we have, and we want to put them right out there so you know what's expected. So we expect you to be involved in worship. And as you see in the first and last bullet points, serve, be part of worship, serve, usher, be part of a ministry, be a leadership in a ministry or in a project or work group. So we want you to be people who are involved in the daily workings and ministries of the church. So we want active participation. We also need you to be pledging members, okay? Because we are talking about finances and stewardship of finances. So we have to be models and examples of that. So we need people to pledge for the operating budget. We do wish you to be, not more than wish, we need you to be present at Vestry meetings. This is kind of like a job. So we need you to be at decision-making meetings. We need you to participate and give your input. Now, we know life happens, so sometimes you're not able to make it, but we will give you leeway to miss 3 meetings in a year. Now, the term of a Vestry member is typically 3 years. So you get to miss 3 meetings in a year if you have to. We understand, as I said, that life does happen. What we're trying to say is we need you there more than not. Okay, so if you're going to be missing a lot, we're going to be wondering about your commitment and we're going to be missing your input. So we do need you at the meetings. So in the meeting, we have an opening reflection and a closing prayer. We like to divvy that up between the 12 of us and take turns. So we rotate and share that responsibility. When we're in real life meetings, we actually have really yummy snacks. So we also rotate that. At the moment, clearly, that's something you don't need to worry about, but usually we have yummy snacks and we rotate those as well. After we've had a Vestry meeting, we decide on the 3 main points that encapsulate the primary issues we talked about that month, and we share responsibility to report that out to the different worship communities. We want everybody to understand and know what we worked on, what we decided, and the direction we're taking. So we report out and give those 3 points at the different services. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're also stewards of the mission. So how do we do this? We identify our current realities. So I mentioned one of them, which was the deconstructing racism. That came about rather suddenly, and we moved on it. Our clergy was brilliant. We started having deconstructing racism groups. People volunteered for those as well. They felt called to be part of those groups. We called on others too that we thought would be helpful in those because of experience and expertise. So if you feel called to those types of groups, please put yourself forward. We're happy to have you participate. So part of that is that now at St. Luke's, one of our current realities is we are actively working on becoming a beloved community. That is who we are right now, and that is where we're moving. So that means working with the unhoused, LGBTQIA+, anti-racism. We are going to be having programs and working groups dealing with those things. That's who we are at the very moment. The other thing we're looking at is virtual and hybrid worship. At some point in time, hopefully sooner rather than later, we are going to be going back to in-person worship. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we have a committee already set up. So that's part of Vestry too. We set up committees or we volunteer for committees that work on things we see coming up. So we have a committee ready. They haven't met yet because it's not time yet for us to meet in person. But these are the things we have to look at. In future, we are going to be keeping virtual worship as part of our worshiping MO, because we have people who don't feel they can come back, and we know we have a wider reach with this type of worship. So we are actively looking at cameras and how we're going to do that. So this is part of who we are at the moment. How are we going to steward that? We have to decide that. We're also working actively to become a bilingual, bicultural church. I talked about this in my epistle. We have a 1230 group that yearns to be fully integrated as our worshiping community. So we are going to be working actively in that. And formation at all levels to talk about these important issues. So that's who we are at the moment. Now, what else do we want to become? What else do we want to do with our money? That is for the new vestry to decide. As I mentioned, capital campaign, that is coming to a close this year. Sanctuary renovations will be done, parish halls renovations will be done. So what now? Where do we want to go, not only as a spiritual community, but how do we want to take care of our property and grounds? Those are discernment issues that the next vestry will have to talk about. So these are things that we do to dream the dream for our church. So, is it I, Lord? These are questions we ask ourselves in different areas of life. So if you're thinking about coming onto vestry, let's look at skills and talents. We know we have time, talent, and treasure. But start thinking from now what you offer, what you would like to offer. If you're not sure about that, talk to people dear to you, talk to people who know you. People who love us often see different things in us that we are blind to, we're not sure about, or perhaps we're doubtful about. Talk to people, pray over it. Ask the Lord, what is it that I can do to serve you, Lord? What can I offer? And know the why of your calling. Why do you want to be on vestry? That's an important question to ask, because as you see on the list on the screen here, there are a lot of things that will be required of you. And you are working as a body, which means each different part has skills and talents. We all will pull in different directions, but at the end of the day, we have to come to a consensus and make a decision. That may mean that what you were hoping for or what you were pushing for as an outcome isn't what happens, isn't the decision we take. You have to be able to be okay with that. You have to be able to realize this is a collaborative work where all the parts of the body pull together, but no part stands out on its own or works on its own. So you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt with whatever comes along.
Elizabeth,
So, yes, sir.
I do want to add the consensus thing. It is very important for the vestry as a board, having served on a previous vestry, that if there is splintering and it's shown, it shows to the parish, and the parish does not like to see that if there is a splintering, because groups start to chatter and people start to talk, and it may cause people discomfort, and they may end up leaving the parish because there's no consensus at the board. So the consensus, even if you don't like the outcome, we still support it, even though we wanted a different outcome, because it is important to show unity as the vestry in a decision, even if you don't like the outcome. Um, People have left the parish in the past because of decisions made that served on vestry, and it causes some discomfort, and it takes a little time of healing to get over that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. Perfect point. So we want to present a unified front to the church. We want to present that we came to this conclusion and this decision together. So as Ryan points out, that's really important. You have to be okay with that. So that's something else in your period of discernment that I'd like you to look at. Remember, we are focused on the common good. This isn't about what I want or what about somebody else wants on the vestry. This is for the common good. So we have to be supportive of the church's mission. We're going to come up with a strategic plan, and the hope is you're going to be an advocate for that. You're going to be supportive of that. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that it does go beyond monthly meetings. So again, I said this is kind of like a job. It is. So be present at the meetings. Be present in the meetings. Give your attention, give generously of your skills, focus on what we're talking about, be part of the decision. And as things come up, we will be making community, work groups, focus groups, things like that. We hope you participate. If we look at this nominating committee and this talk that we're having right now, Ryan and I and the members of the vestry going out in January, we suddenly came up with the decision, along with Mother Jane, to have this nominating committee. As far as I know, this hadn't been done before. So we reached out to people that we thought might be good candidates. We opened this up. We presented this to you now. This is something that comes up. Different things will come up. So please be aware, it's not only a Tuesday a month. You will be having to do other things as well. Okay, so your time will be a little bit more than just that. Okay, so you're probably thinking now, oh my goodness, I've never done this before. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to do this. Oh, this is overwhelming. Take your time, just breathe. We want fresh eyes. We want a different perspective. We welcome new people. We welcome people who have been here for years and years and years and just now feel that they're cold. It's normal to feel nervous, but we're going to be working together. We're not going to let you flounder on your own. We're all there to support each other. So what we're looking for today is diversity in all ways. Age, gender, ethnic makeup. We want the vestry to reflect who we are as a congregation. So diversity is definitely what we want. As members of the body of Christ, we will have different ways of dealing with things. Some people are planners, some people are like, take it as it comes. We want people who can dream. We want people who are willing to just get in there and work, be advocates. Bring your questions. We're all part of the body of Christ, as I said. So think about your part, think about what you bring. And if you have questions, ask us, either now or later. Is it you? As you're asking, is it I, Lord? So good luck in your discernment. Thank you so much for your time today. And before we go, talking about the body of Christ, this was the photo of your current vestry taken at the vestry planning day in February. What we're doing here, why we all have pieces of paper, is that we identified for ourselves what part of the body we felt we are. And then we also turned to somebody next to us and we shared with them what part of the body we felt they represented, whether or not it was in agreement with what they saw themselves. So we also shared with each other how we saw each other. And then we placed each other sort of in the body. So at the back, we have eyes and ears and mouths, and we went down the body as we came along. Nancy Wallace is there, the liver. So we have all our different parts. So we just want to remind you that we are in this together and we all bring different things. So now I open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask us? Ryan and I are here, Jane is here. And if not, as I said, reach out later. You're welcome at any time. And that's it for me.
This is a quiet bunch.
Maybe they're mulling over it. Maybe some people already knew about this, so.
One thing I would add, if you are thinking it over, but you're not sure this year is your year to come, still let us on the nominating committee know, because we will add you to our master list to reapproach you in the following year for 2022. We are keeping track. Some people are just not ready, but who knows where you will be a year from now. So if there's any interest, please let us know so we can at least follow. Yes, Jerry.
Question I have is, if I were interested, what would be the process? What's the timeline? All of those detail sorts of questions of how do we get from point A to point B?
Good question. Actually, there's a form that we can send you to fill out, and then you will be included as one of the slate of candidates come our annual meeting on January 31st. And then that's when the church as an entire at the annual meeting would vote upon the slate of candidates to vote you on to the vestry. And then after that meeting, we would have a brief 5-minute meeting, Jane, something like that, 5-10 minutes. Post vestry would be our technically first vestry meeting of the new vestry, basically to set out the calendar and elect the vestry to elect the people's warden, which is the junior warden. So there's a form, basically.
Yeah, Jerry, we can send that form to you. And you can start taking a look at it. It's pretty simple, but you know, it's got some sort of discernment questions. So we can send that to you. And as Ryan said, just as long as we get that before the annual meeting, and we'll add your name to the list of candidates. So we'll get the form to you.
We need to make some updates to it.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Is there anything any of our current vestry members would add from your perspective? Anything that you think is particularly important, or maybe even something that surprised you if you recently came on to the vest?
Pandemic.
That was a big surprise. Yeah, sorry, Ryan. We were talking about this with Mother Jane, that we as a vestry, this current vestry, we only met for the vestry planning day in at the end of February, and after the annual meeting to choose our junior warden. And since then, we have only met on Zoom. So that's been our current reality.
I'll offer two things. It isn't unique that only four members of the vestry are replaced every year. And that gives a wonderful, like Elizabeth said, you don't get thrown out there with not knowing what you're doing, because there's two groups ahead of you who have been there 3 years or 2 years. And that's terrific. It gives you a sense of that it's a organic thing and you're just sort of new into it, you know? And the other thing is, I recommend it. If I think we're all bonded to St. Luke's, it's part of all of our families. And we all have ideas about where the boat should sail, you know? And it's a wonderful place two things. It's a wonderful place to get to know well other people who share your same love. And it's also a great way to have an impact. You can kind of, you know, I always bring up manna meals, for example. You can actually make a difference if there's something you feel passionately about the church being involved in. So it's been a great experience. And now it's particularly easy because we do everything on Zoom. So you don't even have to travel to Long Beach. And I suspect that's going to be the same through this year, but others are more optimistic than I am. Anyway, I welcome everybody.
You learn that God has a sense of humor too, because Jane, Nancy, Elizabeth, and I sat down beginning January planning out the calendar. We had the whole year planned out, and God said, and we spent probably 3 to 4 hours on it. And God said, nope, not doing that. And we had to completely change the schedule. So be prepared for things to just change on a whim too, beyond our control.
Yes.
Well, we always know that whenever we make plans, life really happens. But being on the vestry is such a great experience. Don't think it's all just work. It's building relationships and friendships. And we are a pretty funny group also. And those that have left us and those that will be coming on, it's such a warm, caring relationship that you have with each other. And it really helps you learn how our church works, but it allows you to give your talents and all the incredible things that you are to share with everybody in our church. So I, along with everybody, recommend that you try it. Don't be scared.
Yeah, no, don't. We're all in it together. Actually, along with that, Julie, I would say one of the things that I've really enjoyed about being on Vestry is seeing the vision take shape. So while we may plan for something and something else may happen, over time, the vision of the mission unfolds, and that's very exciting. And as it unfolds, people get excited about it, they come on board, and it's just wonderful to see, excuse me, to see it unfold. And being part of that is a privilege. I've enjoyed that part of it.
And this next year is going to be so uncharted waters, but I think that we have, just as a vestry and as a congregation, done some incredible work this year, and we have some incredible opportunities and hope and faith and love to work together to make this that beloved community that we want to be.
Yeah, I was going to say this vestry, I think, is going to be the vestry that transitions us back into the church into a hybrid form, whether it's in April, May, half of the year. I have a feeling this vestry is what's going to transition us back into the church.
And if you're not sold by it by now, just know that you get to hang out with Jane and me, and like that should just be it.
Yeah. That's a fun part too, I have to say. I've enjoyed that.
The one good thing about Zoom is we're not fighting over spaces at the table, because that table in the commons room gets pretty crowded pretty quick.
Yeah.
But with the socially distance, that ain't happening.
I have to say one advantage of Zoom, which I didn't expect to say, but you see everybody on the screen. So you see everybody's face and expression at the same time. Whereas if you're sitting around a table, you don't easily see the people next to you until, you know, so that's an advantage of a Zoom meeting. And you can be in your pajama bottoms. So there you go.
It's also easy to control speaking time.
Yeah, one thing you have to do every day, every meeting, is see who controls the mute button, and it's usually a tussle, but we'll see how you all handle it going forward.
That's not true.
No, Nancy Frausto's in charge, and she mercilessly mutes you if you go over
The time cube. She's got the time cube.
Yeah, she times us, which is great.
We need that. That's something we implemented this year.
Well,
She's the
and actually
timekeeper.
it was Chad. It was Chad Forster who said we need to get a time cube. So he did that in his final months as senior warden, and we have lived into our time cube this year.
We have.
Any other questions, comments, things you want to bring up to the vestry or want the new vestry to focus on if you're not going to run?
And as we said, please feel free to reach out either to Ryan or myself if you have questions. I've had a chat with a few of you, so I'll follow up on those things. But if in the near future you have questions or doubts, please reach out. That's what we're here for. We have time before the meeting, and that's part of why we did this today. We want people to start discerning and thinking, and for it not to be a mad rush, you know, the day before the meeting or the day of the meeting. So with time, you can think it over and ask your questions, fill out your forms, get them back to us, or just say thanks, but no thanks, not this year. Maybe in the future, that's fine too. So reach out, that's what we're here for.
And while any vestry member or clergy or fellow parishioner can be a good person with whom to talk, in addition to the wardens, Elizabeth and Ryan, Julie and Tom Warnke are also members of the nominating committee.
We set the nominating committee up as the outgoing class plus the junior warden, because the junior warden would inherit the next class. So the only one that's biased in this would be myself at this point. But next year I will have no biases. And then I would think we can get the new updated form out sometime this week. It's just a few edits. It's just updating some dates and stuff. It's nothing major, but that would probably be about it. And the potential calendar, I don't know if we're going to include that or not. And the meetings next year most likely will be on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
That was the other thing, because I've got to work around my schedule for work purposes.
All right. So if there aren't other questions, Elizabeth, Ryan, Julie, and Tom, thank you for your leadership on this new nominating committee and for pulling this session together. And think, pray, talk, dream dreams, because St. Luke surely needs a strong vestry, because these are not easy days to be church. And our polity calls for shared leadership. And we really depend on you all, and you all sharing of all the gifts and insights and experience you have to help us be the community we want to be and that God and our community need us to be. So thank you all, and enjoy your process of discernment. And we will now get ready for church in Spanish.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
all.
time.
Elizabeth, I will see you at 1:30.
Sure.
It's fine. There's nothing secret, Jen. I just had a very quick question for you. At the Bible study today, when well, and I can see it forming as people get, used to being with each other. So it was wonderful. And we had a new person who opened up, and it was very nice. The quick question is, I kind of have the impression the folks today, they think it's continuing through Advent. I know this was supposed to be the last day and it was going to pick up through January. So I just wanted to confirm that was still the plan.
Yes, and that is what the weekly says, but if you have a list of the people who have come, or maybe you told them today, no, not next week, we are picking up again on the 10th, but the weekly definitely is communicating that it's not on next week.
Yeah, I do have a list because there was a little confusion. I said, well, I'll get back, just keep an eye on the weekly and then.
I mean, you can do what you want, but that was what we had said, just to maybe give people one less thing as we get closer to Christmas. And because Mark's Gospel really, really doesn't have any nativity stories, it just jumps the season so fast.
Yes. Okay. Well, no,
You've
I'm
done
fine to
what
stay
you
that
can
way.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm fine. If that's what's been communicated, I don't want to confuse. I hopefully didn't confuse anybody. I said, well, to my understanding, we'll start there. But keep an eye on the thing. If we're going to meet next week, you'll see it in there. Otherwise, if you don't see it, we're not meeting.
Yeah. So if you want to send the list to Lemia, she can get you all the emails if you don't have access to them. Just because I think, given that you had the conversation, it was left a little vague, at least for that community of people, you can say, just to create a little time and space around Christmas for everyone. And because there is no nativity narrative in Mark's Gospel, you'll be starting up again, and you can give them specifically what you want them to be focusing on, like what's the week you're going to be dealing with on the 10th of January.
Okay, sounds good.
And
That's
then
what
you might want to rethink that. We'll put a notice in the weekly this week that just sort of is prep, write something to say, we're going to take a brief Christmas break and resume on the 10th, and here's what we'll be doing on the 10th. And then we can run a version of that again on the week of the 3rd, saying, oh, coming next week, and then on the 9th.
Okay, sounds good. I just want to clarify. There's a little confusion. Okay.
Yeah, my practice, and sometimes it gets, when you communicate too much, sometimes you confuse people too.
Yeah.
Because we just keep repeating things, and it's like, wait, did you say that was or it wasn't happening?
Yeah.
No, that message said it wasn't. And it was like, oh, I saw a message there, so I assumed it was. And you're like, eh.
Okay. No, I'll do that. I'll work with Lamia to get the email addresses.
That would
I
be
wrote
great.
down the names, and
Yeah.
I'll communicate directly with
Excellent.
them just in case. Okay.
Brilliant. Great.
Okay.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you on Wednesday.
You betcha.
Bye-bye.